Hey everyone, my name is Jake, and welcome to the 13th episode of Good Timin. As always on this podcast, we're going to be talking all about one of our favorite bands, the Beach Boys. And today we're going to be covering a pretty interesting album in the band's discography that I personally think is one of the Beach Boys' strongest post-Pet Sounds records. And it's an album that features a lot of really great and unique songs that are beloved among a lot of Beach Boys fans. So the record I'm talking about, of course, is the Beach Boys' 1973 album Holland. And as we've done on our previous album episodes, we're going to be discussing the album's history and background. We're going to do a track-by-track rundown of the album and share our thoughts and opinions on each song. And since we already covered most of the outtakes and extra material from this time on our Carl and the Passions episode, we're also going to be discussing the Beach Boys in concert album from the same year and sharing our thoughts on some of the band's live performances from around this time. So joining me for today's episode, I have Riley, Matt, and our special guest, David, who hosts his own Beach Boys podcast on Spotify called Apples and Oranges. And on his show, he and his son Jackson match up Beatles and Beach Boys albums against each other and kind of go through them track by track to determine which is the better record. So I've listened to every episode of David's podcast so far, and I can tell all of our listeners that it's a great show. As I've mentioned before in this podcast, I'm a big fan of both the Beatles and the Beach Boys. They're two of my all-time favorite bands. And it's a lot of fun to hear David and Jackson's thoughts and opinions on each band and their different albums and songs. So I can't recommend the show enough, especially if you're someone with a big interest in both bands like myself. Again, the podcast is called Apples and Oranges, and we'll put a link in the description of the episode so all of you can check it out as well. Do you have anything else you want to say about the show, David?
Yeah, it's just a comparison of the discographies, looking from 1963 to 1970. I feel like there's a pretty strong parallel trajectory that the bands followed, and a lot of these albums match up fairly naturally with each other. And so we're doing these in a series of 1v1 matchups. So our first one was because the Beatles had fewer albums, we're having to skip some Beach Boys albums just to keep it in that 1v1 format. So our first matchup was Please Please Me versus Surfin' USA, and we're going to go all the way through, and I think we're going to end with Abbey Road versus Sunflower. And we're just going to step through the 60s like that. We're having a lot of fun with it. I believe as we're recording this, we're in the middle of Surfer Girl versus With the Beatles. And it's been a lot of fun. My son and I both coming at this as Beach Boys fans. We have complete knowledge of the deep catalog and everything about the Beach Boys. And this show is also chronicling my discovery of the Beatles. So, I mean, obviously I know who they are and I know their story and their big hit singles, but I've never explored their albums before. And so I feel like I'm presenting the Beach Boys to a large degree because I feel like there's a lot more Beatles fans out there than there are Beach Boys fans.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also, you're getting to witness me and us, but really me learn about the Beatles. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's been eye-opening. I've discovered a lot of great songs by the Beatles that I had never heard before. I thought I would have to fight against my Beach Boys bias in order to be objective with these matchups because we pick a winner. We declare at the end of the matchup who we think has the better album in that match. And I thought I'd have to be fighting against my Beach Boys bias, but what I've discovered is that there's also a recency bias that I get with the Beatles because it's like, okay, do I like this too much right now just because it's brand new for me and I'm blown away? It's hard to be objective on both sides. So it's been a challenge, but it's been fun. And I'm getting a lot of great response and a lot of great feedback. So if I would imagine that anybody that likes your show would like mine, I hope people will check it out.
Yeah, like I said, it's really great. I love the discussions you guys have. And, for me, I was a Beatles fan first. I grew up listening to the Beatles. My dad is a huge Beatles fan, and I was always familiar with their albums. And I got into the Beach Boys a little later on. So it's an interesting perspective for me, too, to hear that, because you're coming at it from a more of a Beach Boys perspective, whereas I've always known the Beatles stuff. So it's interesting for me to listen to as well. So all right, so before we get into our Holland discussion, I thought it would be good to share some basic facts and info about the album in case any of you listening aren't super familiar with it or just need a refresher. So the album was released on January 8th, 1973 on Brother Reprise Records, and it was the Beach Boys' 19th studio album. It was recorded between June and November of 1972, and much of the recording was done near Amsterdam in the Netherlands, which explains the album's title, Holland. Interestingly, the band had their engineer, Steve Moffat, put together a portable mixing desk, which is something that had never really been done before up to that point. But this kind of proved to be problematic because it costed the band a ton of money, like thousands of dollars, to have everything shipped over to Holland and assembled. And then it also took many hours of work just to get the equipment up and running. I think I read somewhere that like Steve Moffat spent like 15 hours a day, like for like weeks, just trying to get the all the gear up and running. So it sounds like it was like a total pain in the ass, but they did eventually get everything working. Um, Holland was also the second album to feature South African musicians Blondie Chaplin and Ricky Guitar. And like the band's previous record, Carl and the Passions, you can hear Blondie and Ricky's sound and influence all over this album. In terms of the album's sound and style, it's definitely a lot more cohesive than Carl and the Passions, in my opinion. A lot of the songs, I think you could kind of consider them progressive pop or progressive rock, but there's also some country and Americana themes and influence throughout the album as well. In terms of the album's chart performance, it did do a bit better than Carl and the Passions. It peaked at number 36 on the US Billboard chart and number 20 in the UK. So a bit better, but still not like phenomenal. And it generally received better reviews from critics as well, because Carl and the Passions definitely got mixed reviews. Holland did seem to be somewhat better received, although there still were kind of mixed reviews of the album as well. So, but today the album is really beloved by a lot of Beach Boys fans, myself included. It's, as I mentioned, it's one of my favorite post Pet Sounds albums from the band. I think it's a great release. I think it's a very cohesive album, a really enjoyable listen, and in my opinion, it's one of the most interesting and unique albums in the band's whole discography. So I think that's a pretty solid introduction to Holland. So now to get into some more about the album's background and history, I'm going to hand it over to Riley. So do you kind of want to pick up from there and talk about where the Beach Boys were at this point and just kind of how this album came together?
Yeah, so this was like right after they recorded Carl and the Passions. 72 was a really busy year for the band. They spent most of it touring and recording and not much room for everything else. They moved to Holland at Jack Riley's kind of direction to record. I don't remember the exact town name, but I know it was a very expensive thing to do. And I know that they're also moving their families there. So you have to remember there's like basically all seven members were moving straight up from LA to Holland to kind of have a new recording spot. And that was very expensive to do, not just to move, but also just to record because they were also building a studio inside. I think it was an old farm building.
Like a barn, yeah.
Yeah, and so it cost a lot of money. And eventually that kind of is what led to Jack Riley being kicked out as manager. I mean, I know that's one of the reasons. I know there's a lot of other like backstories that you can kind of hear about that. But for me, that's kind of what makes the most sense. But a lot of these songs were written like right around the same time as Carl and the Passion. So this was like, I think June 72. I mean, the album released in January of 73, but they spent most of that summer just recording and then right back on the road. But I do see this as a much more cohesive album than Carl and the Passions. I mean, Jake mentioned that it's kind of prog pop. I kind of just see it as a regular prog album. I mean, I know that a lot of prog fans might like get angry about me saying that, but I mean, my favorite band is Pink Floyd, and I see this as a very prog album. There's a couple of tracks that I'll mention on here that have those moments. But yeah, recorded in 72, very expensive album to make. It kind of marked the end of that era of them being, I guess, more progressive and trying to be their own force and rather than kind of following other like directions at that time. And people say it's the last great Beach Boys album. I disagree a little bit. I think Love You and I guess even LA and my personal opinion 85 are all great in their own rights, but you could argue that this is the last great album, but yeah, not much else to add on the history of it.
Matt and David, what are your guys' like general thoughts on this album?
So this one was a grower for me. The first time I listened to it, so I actually first listened to it when I bought the Analog Production CDs. Like I just bought the whole set with Christmas money a couple of years ago. And when I first listened to it, like some of it was, I thought fine, but it didn't really super click with me. And then after listening to it a couple of times, it really started to grow on me. And it is one of my favorites. I wouldn't put it like in my top 3, but it's definitely in my top 10. I think it's a great album. It's got a lot of good cuts on it. It kind of has like a lot of the like, it's more cohesive, like you said, than Carl and the Passions. And also I like that they kind of were starting to do more progressive stuff. Leaving This Town, I think is a great song. And we'll get to that when we go down the lineup. But yeah, I think it's a really, really good album. Really, really good album. And some of the critic reviews for it were a little harsh. I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah.
That's okay. Different strokes.
David, your thoughts?
I am in the middle of having this album grow on me. When I first heard the album, I didn't understand the Blondie and Ricky stuff. Like, what is this stuff doing on a Beach Boys album? This is not the Beach Boys. I liked Sail on Sailor, and I liked California, whatever you call it, the third one in the saga. And that was it. At first, those were the only two I cared about, and I was like, why? This I didn't get the album at all. That changed. The next track I liked a couple years later was Funky Pretty. That was like the third one to click into place for me. And really, that was it for me until the Sail on Sailor box set came out. And I started like getting it after that. Well, no, I should say before that, I discovered the 4/4 version of Big Sur and really liked that a lot. And I still prefer it. But when I then revisited the 3/4 version on this album, I was able to appreciate it more because I just kind of understood the song better. And then with the Sail On box set, that is when Only You or Only With You and the Blondie stuff started clicking for me. Now, we can get into Leaving This Town. I don't know if that's the Blondie song I would have picked, but I understand it better than I used to. So, coming around. And then just recently, like this year, I started liking Steamboat really for the first time. So, my appreciation for this album continues to grow. I think Leaving This Town is going to be the toughest challenge for me. But I now see this album in a much different light. My initial reaction was I just like those two tracks, and now I like almost everything on here. So I've enjoyed it. It's almost like a new album for me, and I've been a fan for 35 years. So.
That's funny you mentioned Steamboat, because that one just recently has been clicking with me too, because for the longest time, that even after I started getting more into the album, that was the one track I couldn't connect with it. I just couldn't get into it. And now it's really starting to grow on me. It's really moving up the ranking for me. I like it quite a bit now.
Oh yeah. No. I love this album. This is my number 2 favorite Beach Boys album, but that's like, it's not that far off from today. Like it's like, I literally did the math on it. Like, I mean, I like this song. It's like an 8 out of 10, whatever. I did the math, and it's like 0.3 away. But it's one of my favorite albums. And it's probably because I am like a prog rock fan, and I can kind of get used to those like weird ideas and like those like long drawn out songs. Like Leaving This Town really clicked with me like right away, especially when I heard that like keyboard solo. But this is like, I have like 4 copies of this. I just got my Analog Productions one. I could see this maybe going past today eventually for me, but
wow,
it might happen. I've been listening to this one a lot lately, but yeah, I love Holland.
A couple other quick things just related to the album's history. I know normally we have Justin here to kind of fill us in on some of the band history, but he's not here tonight. But just a couple other things I wrote down that I wanted to mention. So the album was released. The band was touring from March to May. It said the Beach Boys embarked on a 10-week U.S. tour with their supporting band featuring like Billy Hinchy and Carly Munoz, a lot of those guys. And their set list at that time included songs like Funky Pretty, Leaving This Town, California Saga, California, and Sail on Sailor. And then according to music historian Keith Badman, critics noted some unusually long pauses between each song and the group's sometimes negative reaction to any audience requests for oldies, which when we get to talking about the In Concert album later, we can kind of talk about that. But I've listened to like some bootlegs of like concerts from around that era, and you can definitely hear like there is some tension sometimes with the audience kind of like getting bored with some of the newer material or just wanting the band to play the oldies. And you can tell the band would get very frustrated. And there's times where like they'll play a song and Carl will say afterwards, like, thank you for listening, which kind of tells you like the fact that he's even saying that tells me like they've really dealt with some bad audiences around that time. So, and then the other thing I wanted to mention, so the recording process with this album was kind of interesting. So Ricky Fatar, who obviously played drums and other instruments on this album, he said that in terms of the recording process, everyone would come in with a piece of a song or a completed song, and they'd kind of just play around with it and figure out how we want to record it. It was very casual. So like I think I read like for Leaving This Town, I think that was a song that Ricky Fatar for the most part kind of started, and then I think he brought it to like Carl and some of the other guys, and they ended up kind of working on it and finishing it. So it's kind of an interesting thing there where like the guys would kind of just work together to complete these songs. And then another interesting thing, of course, with the band being in Holland, it was an interesting period because they were so used to living in California, and now they're in this completely foreign country. So it was interesting. They all had like different living arrangements. I think they had 4 or 5 houses that were all kind of within like 20 or 30 miles of like the recording studio in Amsterdam. So like I think like Brian had a house and Alan Mike had houses, and it sounds like it was kind of an interesting period. I know Brian wasn't too happy to be there. I don't think. I think I read that like they took him 2 or 3 times just to like get him onto the flight to Holland, which is kind of tells you that he was not interested in going whatsoever. And I don't think Dennis really enjoyed being there much either, because I think Dennis ended up leaving after just like a month or so. I think I forgot. I think where did he end up going? Dennis went to the Canary Islands, and he would only return to the studio for like certain sessions. So and then the album was completed. They ended up completing the album back in California. They recorded the basic tracks in Holland, but then they ended up kind of doing the final mixing and stuff over back in California. And when they initially presented the album to Warner Reprise, they actually rejected it because they didn't think it had a hit single. The band, they felt like there wasn't a single on the album and that they needed to add something. So what they ended up doing was they added the song. They dropped the song "We Got Love," which was a Blondie and Ricky composition, and they added the song "Sail on Sailor," which was a Brian Wilson composition that they ended up kind of changing the lyrics to. I know there's multiple people credited for the lyrical changes. I know like Jack Riley's on there, Tannen Almer, Van Dyke Parks. There's that audio recording that they uploaded or they included on the "Sail on Sailor" box set where Brian is working with Van Dyke on Sail on Sailor, and like you can hear them kind of talking. There's like some funny dialogue there. I think we mentioned that before, but yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing there. I heard that the band was very upset that Warner rejected the album. They thought it was like a really strong effort, like they put a lot of time into it, like especially after Carl and the Passions, which was kind of a rush job, But Sail on Sailor, I mean, I think it was a great addition. It's the strong, in my opinion, it's easily one of the strongest songs on the album. So with that, do we want to get into the track list rundown, guys?
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to say one quick thing before we get started. We Got Love. There were some early promo copies, I think in Germany, that had We Got Love at the very beginning, and those are very rare and sought after. And I believe originally Steamboat was supposed to be the opener, and that's why it opens with the fade in, because the original intent was you would drop the name on the record and then it fades in, which is kind of cool because the Beach Boys didn't really do too many fade ins. So we'll get there though. We'll get there.
Okay.
That's interesting. Steamboat would have been the opener. Now, that wouldn't have been a great opener in my opinion. I think it was a good move to add Sail and Sailor at the start. All right, so I guess we'll get into the track list rundown then. So opening the album, as we mentioned, on side 1 is Sail on Sailor. So I really love this song. This is one of my favorite Beach Boys 70s songs. The big thing that makes the song really distinctive is that Blondie Chaplin is on lead vocals on this song, and he delivers a really great vocal. I love his voice on this song. It sounds great. I saw Blondie when I saw Brian in 2021. Blondie sang this song, and it was really cool to get to hear him sing it. It's a really great song. I love the lyrics. I think it's got a great melody, and it's one of those songs that like it doesn't really necessarily sound much like a Beach Boys song. Like if you hear it on the radio, like or you play it for somebody, they probably wouldn't guess, oh, this is the Beach Boys. But I almost think that kind of works to their advantage, almost because like at the time the Beach Boys weren't exactly like the hippest band, And I believe this song did get like some FM airplay. And that might kind of have to do with the fact that it does sound like it really fits in with the time. It almost doesn't sound like a Beach Boys song. So I really love the song. I know it's kind of a complicated history in terms of the songwriting history of this song. The main thing that we do know is that Brian basically got the core of the song, and Van Dyke was pretty heavily involved in it as well. But what are your guys' thoughts on Sail on Sailor?
I really love it. I've actually heard it on FM radio with my dad on a long car ride not that long ago. I think like a year or two ago. I was coming back from school, and for whatever reason, Sail on Sailor came on. I'm like, holy shit, this is the Beach Boys on the radio, which was like already a shock because they don't get a lot of radio play, especially on the FM stations. So that was really exciting. It was written as a lead single it was one of the 2 Brian songs. There is that story of him when Van Dyke like writing it, and Brian's like, hypnotize me and tell me I'm not crazy, and Van Dyke says, just write the fucking song. That part was cut from the box set, which really disappointed me. I wanted to hear that, but like based on that, we already have that like hypnotize me part. Like I could tell that's something Van Dyke would definitely say. But I mean, I really enjoy it. I got really excited when I heard it on the radio. I didn't expect it especially since it was like Holland already clicked with me. It was one of those albums that like kind of clicked right away, and I was like really excited to hear "Sail on Sailor" on the radio. That was cool. It's not my favorite from the album, but like it's still like an amazing song for me. It's on my playlist. It gets a lot of listens. I know Brian said he wrote it with like a Ray Charles kind of voice in mind, which makes a lot of sense. But I think Blondie kills it. And Jake, I'm really jealous that you heard Blondie sing this live. Like this is such a great song. I like the piano. I like everything about it. It's so not Beach Boys, but like it fits the album so well and is definitely a much better lead off track than Steamboat. I think Steamboat works better as like a mid album track than this one. But one of the, like I said, like this is one of the first albums that really clicked with me outside of like the surf stuff. And Sail On was one of the first songs I really liked because it's the first song on the album. I love it.
Matt, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a great opener. Blondie delivers a great vocal. It definitely doesn't sound like a Beach Boys song. I know I've said this before, but my sister, when she first heard it, thought it was David Bowie. Now, I know you're thinking, why does she think it was David Bowie? She doesn't listen to a lot of classic rock, so she just thought it was David Bowie. But yeah, it's a great vocal. I like the way it opens, like with the, I don't know if it's like the organ or that sounds like it's a cool opener. Great way to start the album. The harmonies are awesome. Lyrics are great. Yeah, I just think it's a really great song. Great way to start off the record. And I can see why it was a hit, because it's probably one of the few things that they put out around that time that actually sounded like what was on the radio. Because I think that was kind of the problem that the Beach Boys often had, was they were putting out this great material, but they were just choosing these songs that didn't fit on the radio. Like Add Some Music to Your Day is a great song, but why was that the lead single from Sunflower? Should have been like Slip On Through or something like that. That would have sounded a little bit more, in tune with what was popular. So yeah.
David, your thoughts?
Oh, I love it. I mean, yeah, this is the first song of Holland that I immediately got. That driving blues, piano driven blues, it's just awesome. It's easy to hook into. I hear that like there was one take with Dennis on lead vocal. Like he came in and did like one take and then left, and so he ended up not being on this record. It'd be interesting to know what that would sound like. I think Dennis could probably do a good job if he tried with that song. But obviously, I love the fact that Blondie's on this. He does a great job with it. I also have seen him perform it live. I saw 2015 and in 2016. He would do Sail on Sailor and Wild Honey back to back, and it was always a highlight of the show because Blondie could really go off on the guitar in a way that you're not used to seeing with Beach Boys material. So this is a lot of fun, full of energy. It's got a good bluesy rhythm, and for people that are not familiar with the Beach Boys and give me a hard time and try to tease me for being a Beach Boys fan, I'll play them this song and go, yeah, this was sung by one of the black members of the Beach Boys, and they're like, what? Well, yeah, one of the first racially integrated groups you didn't know about, so it always throws people off because they have such a white bread image. But this, I think this has to be considered just in terms, just the fact that it's a single and Blondie's singing the lead on it. I mean, this has to be just kind of a highlight of that Blondie Ricky era. And it's a song you can point to and get behind, and everybody loves it. Here's the thing: it's an anthem for perseverance, and I can tell you that it can be inspirational for people because it was inspirational for a good friend of mine. He was struggling with some substance abuse and stuff like that, and I kind of brought him along and made him a Beach Boys fan. He came with me. He ended up going with me to the 2004 Smile Tour, and after that he became a big fan. But I introduced him to this song, and he really took it to heart because it was just about, it doesn't matter what you're going through, you just keep sailing on and just keep pushing forward. And it really helped him a lot. So this song can be powerful in a way that maybe we don't think about right away too. So for that reason alone, this song will always mean a lot to me.
Yeah, I never that lyrical connection. Within the past year, I've really picked up on that like the song really is a very like motivational song, like a very uplifting song about like pushing forward, like through like the challenges. Like the lyrics about like Blondie singing like persevering. Like it's about kind of pushing forward and not giving up. And yeah, I can connect with the lyrics as well for sure. I really like the lyrics, and I love the way Blondie sings them. He really sells them. So that would be really interesting to hear the Dennis take. But I kind of have a hard time thinking he could have done it any better than Blondie, because Blondie's so good. He did such a great lead vocal on it. All right, we'll move on to track number 2 on side 1 of Holland, which is Steamboat. So this is a song that it was written by Dennis Wilson and Jack Riley. Jack Riley did most of the lyrics, I believe, but it's sung by Carl. And this song has been a really like slow grower for me over time. This is one that used to be a skip initially. It's a song that didn't really click with me very much. I think it's just because, like, for what the reason I said, it is kind of slow. I kind of originally, I think I kind of found it kind of like just plotting, like it didn't really, but over time it's really started to click with me. I really like the part where they're like, "We'll get your steamboat going," like I really like that part. And I think it's just interesting lyrics. I like the opening verse, the way Carl sings it, and like those like backing vocals, like the do 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 do. It's kind of a fun little song, and I like it a lot. Interesting lyrics too about like the inventor of the steamboat, which is kind of interesting. You wouldn't think like the Beach Boys would be doing a song about that, but it kind of shows again like it's kind of the impact of Jack Riley, making the band more progressive and fitting in with the time. So this is a song that I wouldn't say it's a favorite of mine on the album, but it definitely is growing on me. And in the context of the album, I think it works really great. So what are your guys' thoughts on Steamboat?
Oh, it's one of my favorites. Actually, this song clicked with me like right away. I'm a big history guy. Like I'm a history major right now, and like when I heard the Beach Boys do a song about Robert Fulton and like the steamboat, I'm like, oh hell yeah. And then it's a Dennis track too. It's one of my favorite Dennis songs, I think, period. It's definitely my favorite post Sunflower. I like it more than anything on Pacific Ocean Blue, and I feel like I'll probably get a lot of flack for that, but I really dig the song. I like that little breakdown with the pianos, like dun 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 dun, and then you get to that little like slide guitar part. That's so cool. It's one of those moments, like I said, where it's like almost the Beach Boys do a prog album. And I feel like it actually makes sense as a Beach Boys song. It's maybe not like a beach in California, more like a beach like near like Louisiana, kind of that like swampy area rather than the sunny California area. But this song really clicks with me. It's one of my favorites off the album, and I liked it like right off the bat. And in the context of the album, I think it actually works better as a like almost interlude between Sail on Sailor and what comes next. It's such like a good second song on the album, if that makes any sense. It really fits in its place, but I can also like listen to it on its own as like just a regular track. I love it. It's one of my favorite songs on the album.
Yeah,
Enjoy it.
Yeah, this one for me was definitely like it clicked right away. I love how it opens with the fade in. It kind of has like that, I don't know what it is that's carrying that sound, that like has like that thumping sound. The use of the Moog synthesizer is really good. I mean, the Moogs are kind of all over this album. I kind of like Riley said, like that kind of breakdown and like the bridge where it kind of like almost becomes like very proggy. Love the like kind of like the counterpoint in the chorus where you have like Carl where it's going like roll roll river, whatever he's going. Then the rest of it's like don't worry, Mr. Fulton, we'll get you steamboat calling. I like great lyrics. I don't know if I'd say I like it better than anything on Pacific Ocean Blue. It is damn good. I think it's a great song, fits perfectly on the album. Like you said, it does a good job of kind of like transitioning in between. It's like the in-betweener between Sail on Sailor and the California Saga thing. But yeah, I really enjoy it.
David?
Yeah, so for me, this is a brand new song. Like this is the song that I like right now. This is my current favorite on the album because it's just now clicked with me just in the last couple weeks. So I'm currently very excited about Steamboat. It took me a long time. Like I used to skip it all the time. And I was like, okay, I can kind of hear like that paddle boat rhythm. Maybe they're going for something there. I didn't get it. I actually, honestly, just taking the time to actually read the lyrics for me to know what was being said helped a lot. I think I hear a lot of Jack Riley in those lyrics. But I began to understand a little bit that the steamboat's more of a metaphor for, these things in life. And then all the Mr. Fulton stuff with the cascading harmonies and stuff, that really sells it for me. I think that stuff's beautiful. I can listen to that for an hour, not get tired of it. And Jake, like you were saying, you can hear like individual voices for the background. If you listen to it on headphones, you know, you hear like Mike over here, and I don't know if it's Carl over here with Dennis singing or something, but it's just like it becomes this cool little experience. So yeah, I like the song a lot right now, and I probably wouldn't have said that a month ago. So like I said, this album's in the process of growing on me right now, and this is the latest one to fall into place for me. So I'm really excited about it. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I think like kind of like what Riley said, like this song, like this is in terms of like the Beach Boys doing like prog songs, like this is one of the proggiest songs I think in the Beach Boys entire catalog. You know, like if you know, like if somebody that like is into that kind of music, like really into like Pink Floyd and stuff like that, and you want to introduce them to like a Beach Boys song, like this is a really cool song I think to show them. It's just really unique in their discography, and it's interesting that Dennis wrote it because it does really sound unique. Like I can't really think of another Dennis song that sounds like this, so I really like it a lot. All right, so we'll move on to track 3 on side 1, which is the opening track of the California Saga. So this is Big Sur, which was written by Mike Love, and for a lot of people, and myself included, this is like Mike's shining moment. This is a great song. It's kind of got like a country, like folk sound kind of going, which kind of is prevalent kind of throughout this album or throughout this period of the Beach Boys with Blondie and Ricky, but I really love this song. Love the lyrics, really like poetic and beautiful. I think Mike, I think he said he wrote this like when he was like out in Big Sur, I think, and just feeling really inspired. And it's just really great lyrics and great melody. And I will say I do prefer the version on the Feel Flows box set, the original one that was recorded. I do have a preference for that. That just blew me away when I first heard that version. But I do like this version a lot, and I think it's a great way to open the California Saga, and it's definitely one of Mike's finest moments. So what do you guys think of California Saga, Big Sur?
I knew so my first listen to Big Sur was actually from that Feel Flows box set, because when I was initially getting into the band, that was like the new release by them, and I saw it on Spotify, or I guess I had Apple Music back then. So I knew Big Sur by that version, and then I looked it up to see if there was an album cut version, and that's how I found the Holland album, and was through this. But I do like this one about the same as that version. I like each for different reasons. This one is in 3/4 time compared to the Feel Flows version, which is in 4/4. But I think that kind of adds to this version's kind of like presence in that, like in this album, because it's more of like that country folk feel to it. I really enjoy it. I mean, Mike's defining moment, I think, with the band. Definitely some of his best lyrics. They give you a lot of imagery. And definitely his best track, like period. I mean, it's kind of impressive that he wrote it. There's not a lot of chord changes to it, but I think that kind of shows how good the song actually is, that you don't need like 1,000 chords just to make this one song work. It's a very simple song, and that's kind of what makes it powerful for me. But this is my favorite song on the album. It's in my top 10 Beach Boys songs. I mean, the whole California Saga is my number 2 favorite Beach Boys song, but I think I've said if that doesn't count, then Big Sur would probably be at like number 10. So this is one of my favorite tracks, but I think I've talked about it like 1,000 times on this podcast already, how much I love Big Sur. So I won't go into too much detail, but I love it.
Matt?
I think this is a great song to show to someone that says like, oh, Mike Love sucks at writing lyrics. It's a great song, and it has got a really nice melody to it too. I kind of like how this one's a little bit kind of like roots rocky, kind of like country, a little bit more folky than like the other one's more dream poppy for me, a little bit more kind of like that. They're both great versions. At the same time, though, I think this fits so well on Holland that I'm kind of glad the other one wasn't ever released, because like had that been released, I don't know if they really could have used this on Holland. It's a great song. I really enjoy it. Yeah, I think it's wonderful.
David?
Yeah, I agree that this is probably Mike's best moment. I think it's on a short list with All This Is That and All I Want to Do. I think those are the 3 in the conversation. If you're looking at vocal performances, I might put That's Not Me in there also. But this song is again, it's one that was slow to grow on me, but it did, and it was probably, I hered the 4/4 version that ended up on Phil Flows before that box set came out. It was out there for a while, and really fell in love with that version of it. I got a good friend of mine who's a huge Brian Wilson fan, but not so much a Mike Love fan. And so one day I just I think it was I found it on YouTube, and I sent him the link. I said, "What do you think of this song?" And he came back with me like, "That is amazing." I said, "Yeah, well, that's all Mike Love. That's all Mike's." And yeah, he couldn't believe it. It blew him away. So I agree. It's one of his. It may be his best work. But after hearing I think I already said this, but after hearing the 4/4 version, I was able to come back to the album and enjoy that one more than I had before. And this saga, I mean, this suite here, the California Saga, as a whole, is kind of a celebration of Northern California, kind of the wilderness and the nature, the natural state there of everything that's going on. And I think it sets that table well. I've come around on this suite also, and I think it's because of the scene that Mike sets and the imagery in his lyrics here. And I think it does a lot to set the mood for this album. I mean, Steamboat already kind of has you in a mellow mood, and then Mike comes in with this, and now you've got a vibe going. And so it's a winner. I wouldn't have always said that, but I say it now. So I think these first 3 tracks are all hitting.
Yeah. I really like it as an acoustic song. I think it works both ways as like the dream pop song that you hear on the Feel Flows set. But I mean, it works so good as an acoustic song with those lyrics. I think they really match each other because of like you're talking like the wilderness and Big Sur and all of that. It works really well with that kind of like super laid back production with like acoustic guitar, and I think there's some piano on this, but it works so good as that mellow song, that acoustic song. I kind of want to hear like a Beach Boys like MTV Unplugged kind of thing. I know that's what Party was supposed to be, but like I kind of want to hear them like a 70s version of that, where you have like Big Sur and maybe a couple of like the Sunflower and Surf's Up tracks, like just all acoustic. I feel
So
like
like Eric Clapton one.
Yeah, 93, right?
93 or something. Huge. So actually, that was the best-selling MTV Unplugged, even more than Nirvana.
I
Massive.
think it's better than Nirvana's. I like that grunge and that alt rock music, but I'm a sucker for Eric Clapton. For his music, I have to be very clear.
No, he has some great. No, I mean, yeah, Layla's one of my all-time favorite albums.
Yeah.
I know. I'm just saying, like, as a person, not the greatest.
He's one of my guitar like inspirations, so I kind of have to like really like separate the art from the artist, because like when I was learning guitar, like Eric Clapton was literally like my god. Like I had this huge Eric Clapton poster, and like that was like 2020, like 2019. It's like right before like all that stuff kind of like came out, and then it came out and I like took down the poster. But Layla's incredible. But yeah, I would like to hear like a Beach Boys Unplugged, like purely like just acoustic guitar and like the harmonies. I know there's a like 1993 like around the campfire thing.
I was going to mention that was the closest we got besides like Party, but again they were just doing like the oldies then. But yeah, it'd be cool to get like a 70s version where like they do songs like that and like Take a Load Off Your Feet and great songs like that.
I was thinking like maybe like this, like Big Sur, All This Is That would be really cool acoustic.
Baby Blue, maybe.
Yeah, we need to hear that. There needs to be like, I want to hear like let's make that like AI acoustic Unplugged. I know.
Was that the when you were talking about the campfire? Was that the one where Carl was like, "Oh, let's do Luau"?
I think.
Yeah,
so,
I think right.
Yeah, he was like joking that they should play Luau, which they never played that one, so that'd be interesting.
One last thing I just wanted to say about Big Sur before we move on. I totally agree with you guys though. Like this is the correct version for Holland. The other version, I love it. I love the dream poppy vibe of it, but it wouldn't have fit on Holland like this version does. So it definitely suits it better. And like you guys said, like the acoustic version, it really fits the lyrics. Like the lyrics really work well with that. Like the canyons covered in springtime green, birds, and like it's just so like descriptive and like naturey, and I love it. All right, so we'll move on to the second part of the California Saga. So this is the Beaks of Eagles, and this is kind of an Al Jardine composition, but he's using it's words from a poem. This one, I've mentioned before, it's not my favorite track on the album. I'm not a huge fan of the spoken word stuff, but I will say, listening to it in the context of the album, I do think it works okay as a transition between Big Sur and the third part of the California Saga, which is just California. I do like the musical parts of this song. Like I love like and dawn's new light, a man might venture a horse trail. Like I really like the musical part. The spoken word bit, I think it does go on a bit long. Um, it's I mean I get what they were going for. I wouldn't say it doesn't fit the album because I think it does, but it's just not something that is necessarily my favorite thing, the spoken word stuff. But it's definitely an interesting track for sure, and I do like the musical parts of it. So that's my thoughts. What do you guys think?
I it's kind of a guilty pleasure of mine that I do enjoy the spoken word part. I think that's kind of like the prog fan in me. I hated it at first because I thought it was like Mike Love trying to be like super pretentious and like doing his thing. I think everybody understands what I'm trying to say with that. But then I learned it was Al, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's an Al Jardine thing to do. It's like spoken word over like some track, especially with that like melancholic like sound behind him. He's like an eagle's nest, and it's like very very Al Jardine, especially like 70s Al thing to do. Like if you look at the cover of Sailor the box set, and you see Al and his like hat and his beard, it's like yeah, that's this is very Al Jardine.
Yeah.
But
And he had
I gotta be
Baldwin.
honest, I love it. It's like a super like hipster kind of thing, but I think it's like part of me enjoys it out of like as like a funny thing, like unironically. But I enjoy it. It's super prog. It's like one of those like prog moments on the album. And like the music part's really cool. I like how it goes back and forth between that like super depressing lyrics about like eagles and like how they're like almost extinct. And then you have like this a broken glass kind of thing. Like it's so cool. I really enjoy it. And like I will never listen to it on its own. It's that one track on the album that I won't listen to on its own. But I really enjoyed it as part of the California saga. I really enjoyed it as like that interlude between like the super soft Big Sur and the really upbeat California. I really like it. I really like what Al did. It was a bit of a grower with that like spoken word, but now I love it. It's a lot of fun. I don't take it too seriously.
Matt.
Okay, so first thing, it's Robertson Jeffers is where the poem comes from. I think it works great in the context of the record. I would never play it by itself. I think it's really pretentious. I get what they were going for. I think it's silly. It just doesn't really quite work for me. I do like the backing track. I do like the production. I do like the atmosphere of it, the ambience of it, but just doesn't really work for me by itself. Like I said, in the context of the record, it's fine, but I would never listen to it by itself. Definitely my least favorite thing on the album by far.
Oh, I was gonna say I mean there's a couple of versions on YouTube of the California Saga without the spoken word, like the straight up just like stripped away. I made my own version, I think last year, where I just like took out the spoken word, and it sounds more fluid as a song, but like as like a 7-minute song, but like with the spoken word, it definitely sounds more like a suite, like a mini like a Prague symphony, kind of like a something that Yes would do almost. But there are versions without the spoken word that sound really good. I mean, I listen to that about the same.
Why am I spacing?
David.
David. It's late. It's late.
Yeah. So you were talking about Al likes to do spoken word stuff. My mind jumped first to Santa Ana Winds. I think he has a little spoken part on that one. And also, if you remember his solo album, he had Alec Baldwin do a spoken word track on that one. So it does sound like an Al Jardine thing to do that. I feel the same way that y'all do. I would never play this song by itself. It would never go on a playlist. I don't think it works outside of context at all. I don't even like the musical parts of it. I think the lyrics are too pretentious or preachy or something. But if you do put it in the context of the album, it absolutely works, and I think is necessary. I think it adds a lot to the album experience. And when I'm listening to the album, I don't skip it. But I would never just listen to it on its own. I don't think it works that way. So, and I think that's just the nature of it being a suite, and I think, it would have been interesting maybe if they'd done an album where the whole album was this kind of like single approach to like a concept album about Northern California, about nature, Instead, we get a 3-song suite that deals with it, and it's just kind of its own little subset of the album. But you know, like I said, in the context of the album, it works. So there you go. Thumbs up if you're listening to the album, but otherwise, no.
Yeah, and I mean, even like with the spoken word, like my opinion on it, like I could do with some of it. I just think it goes out a little long. Like I just feel like it repeats too much and it just keeps going. I want like whenever it gets to the musical parts, I'm like, all right, this is what I want. Like this is what I like, you know. But then yeah, as soon as it gets back into the spoken word, I'm like, oh man, you know, because I mean, I love the production on this track. I love like the way the piano sounds in the background, like while he's doing the spoken word and all that. But yeah, it's just the spoken word is the only part of this I don't really care for. But the musical elements I think are great. So
well, let me say this. You know, I say it doesn't work, but credit to the band for trying ideas and doing something new and having something important they want to say. You know, very soon after this album, we start getting, you know, stuff from the band that is just not. I mean, you know, they fall off. Even if you're a Love You fan, they fall off a cliff after this album. I mean, you have to admit there's some sort of regression that takes place between, you know, Steamboat and Big Sur, and then like Blueberry Hill and, you know, stuff that was on 15 Big Ones. But you know, what I was going to say is, you know, take this and then also consider Mount Vernon and Fairway and what they did with that, and this whole Holland experience becomes something very, very kind of out there, you know. And I give them credit for doing something new and having ideas and going for it. I mean, I would rather have that from a band than like I said, Blueberry Hill or Chapel of Love. So I, you know, thumbs up.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can respect the band like trying to be like innovative, progressive, you know, and not just like, you know, kind of like what's the word, treading water, you know, which is kind of what once you get to 15 Big Ones, you know, that's kind of what they're doing. And yeah, like you said, like I feel like this is the last album where you see the group really functioning as a whole. Where like you got Carl contributing and Mike contributing and Al contributing stuff, and even and Brian as well, obviously, even Dennis. But then you look at like, you know, 15 Big Ones, Love You, you know, like that kind of stops. You know, obviously like Love You is like a total Brian effort, but in terms of that group chemistry in songwriting, this is where it ends, which is really a shame because like this album shows that like they really could work well together in writing songs, and obviously you got Blondie and Ricky on here too. So all right, so we will move on to the final track on side one of Holland, and this is the third part of the California Saga suite, and this is California. I really like this song. I love Brian's little intro at the beginning. I love the story behind that too. Apparently, like he just walked into the studio one day and walked up to the mic and just like blurted that out and just left. Like the on my way to sunny California. He just said that and just left, which I think is just really funny. Total Brian moment. But I like this song a lot. It's very melodic, very reminiscent of California Girls. I think it's like the bass line is very similar. I did mention on a previous episode that this song kind of feel like outside of the context of the album, it does kind of feel like it's leaning a little too heavily on California Girls to me, but I still really enjoy the song. It's kind of like almost like what's the word I'm looking for? Like a more like Americana version of like California Girls. Like a, you know, it has like it's exactly what you would picture like a Holland California Girls to sound like to me. But I like it. It's fun. Great vocals from Mike Love on this one, and it's an enjoyable track. So what do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one. I kind of always figured it was like a very like reminiscent. It is very reminiscent of California Girls. It does borrow the bass line. It's a very like common bass line, but it's very noticeable in that song. It's the dun 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 dun. I like it though. I do kind of like that. It kind of calls back to like certain like aspects of that Northern California culture and like and talking about like Monterey and all that. Yeah. But it's a very catchy song. I listen to it a lot. It is. I think it's one of the songs that kind of define the album, whether like this is your favorite song off the album or not. It is that like that's the perfect way to put it though. It's a Americana version of California Girls. It's like if they made California Girls during Holland, this is what it would sound like, and that's like the perfect way to put it. But I still really enjoy whether it like rips on it or not. I think it's one of Al's finer moments. I think he has some better songs than this, but it's again, in the context of the album, it's awesome. And in the context of the California Saga, it's like 3 songs sweet. It's a great closer to it. It's a very exciting and upbeat song. I really love it.
Yeah, I love the way it transitions from Beaks of Eagles to this. Like,
Yeah,
when you got
I wanted to
like
mention that the
a
Beaks
little-
of Eagles, like I know you think it's like pretentious. He's like in 1,000 years, but Beaks of Eagles, and I really that really clicks with me. I'm like, oh shit, he said the title of the song, and then it like goes into dun 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 dun.
yeah,
It's one of my favorite parts.
yeah, I love it. Matt,
Yeah, very fun song. It's very bouncy, catchy. I really like the part where it's like it samples like Cool Cool Water. You got the interpolation of Cool Cool Water in there.
yeah,
You know? And I like the part where it's like where Country Joe will do his show and all that. Yeah, it's a very fun song. I really enjoy it, and I think it's a great way to close off side two or side one of the album. Excuse me. Um, yeah, really good song. Really, really enjoyable song.
David.
Yeah, I feel the same. I mean, for all the same reasons, that bouncy bass line, I love just the joy that you hear in the delivery, and it's like and the air so clean it'll just take your mind away,
Yeah.
you get excited about it. Love the lyrics. It probably has my favorite lyric in the catalog when it says, "There the monarch's autumn journey ends on a windswept cypress tree." I think that's awesome. I love that. And then the cool water stuff that they're putting in there, like Matt said, love all of it. It's a big thumbs up for me. Again, like when I said, when I first heard this album, there were only 2 tracks I liked. It was Sail On and this one. So, yeah, I have nothing bad to say about it. I love it.
I love the lyrics of this one too. I know you guys. I didn't really talk too much about the lyrics, but I love them too. Like the Country Joe will do his show. I love that, and then the ending, all the people there in the open air,
Yeah.
one big family. It's just very nice lyrics, and it's a great song. And you can see why this was one of the 2 singles from the album, and you can see why it was. It's like melodic, and I will say I think the single version is a bit different. Like they added some vocals to it. I think it's a different version. I don't really care for the single version as much. I think this album, as part of the California Saga suite, it works much better in my opinion.
And when it starts, it's the big finish to the suite, because you get through Bigs of Eagles, and when this starts, you're like, all right, here we go, showtime. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. The suite really works for me. I like it.
All right, so we will now flip over our record and go to side 2. So opening side 2 of Holland is one of my all-time favorite Carl Wilson songs, The Traitor. I really love this song. This is a Carl Wilson and Jack Riley co-write. So Jack Riley contributed a lot of the lyrics, as he did with a lot of the Beach Boy songs around this time. I really love this song. Carl's vocals are so good on it. I love the little opening with his son, Jonah, with the hi, and then Carl just launches in with the traitor. It's just, I love that. And I love the lyrics too. They're very like interesting. It's about like, I think like the European, like colonization of like Africa and the way that they treated the native people there badly. And it's just like really interesting lyrics from a Beach Boy song, and I know Matt, you've mentioned you really love the lyrics of this song too. It's just really progressive for the time, them doing this. And, it's I love every part of the song. Like I love like the way Carl sings, like signed sincerely, and then it's just so good. I will say the second half where it slows down did take a little bit of time to grow on me. I do still definitely prefer the first half over the second, but Carl really sells the second half with his vocal. It's like so smooth and peaceful, and it's just a great song. I love the 2 different distinct parts, and I love this song. So what do you guys think of The Traitor?
I really like it. It was the first time I listened to like the album as a whole was on like I was on a bike ride in like May. So like I think that kind of points to why I really enjoyed this album a lot. But like I remember the first time I listened to it, I was like, oh, this rocks. And then you kind of get to that second half, I'm like, my mind's blown that this is like in a Beach Boys song. It's like again, it's like one of those prog moments where it's like the song like splits into half, and I just didn't expect that at all. I really like that. You mentioned it, you stole it. I was gonna say that I love the hi traitor. That part's so cool. It's I kind of forget that their families were with them in Holland when they recorded, so it's like kind of like reminds you of that. But the whole song is like really mind blowing, and then you kind of figure out that it's a Carl Wilson song. And I mean, I know Carl has like Long Promised Road and a couple of other tracks around this time, but I think this is the best one. And I was like really shocked that this is a Carl song and not like something Brian would do, like melodically, anyways. And the lyrics are very like provocative, and I don't want to say ahead of its time because like, you still don't really hear lyrics like this anymore, but they're very unique and they're awesome. They're great lyrics, and I got to give Jack Riley credit for this one. So great track, one of my favorites. Probably my favorite Carl song besides "Angel Come Home." But
Matt,
I love this song. Love everything about it. I love the two distinct halves. You have the more kind of like up tempo, upbeat, kind of bouncy sounding part. Then you have like the more slow, mellow kind of part. I really like. I love the lyrics. I kind of interpret about Manifest Destiny, where it's like kind of like you come, like you had the European people come to America. They saw the natives. They're like, oh, they didn't know how to write their name. What a shame. They're like savages. Get off, banish them. Send them. Trail of Tears and all that. And especially if you've seen Killers of the Flower Moon that recently came out, great movie, the Scorsese flick. Even like in the early 20th century, you saw how horrible this one is about the Osage people in particular were being treated by white men. And I think it's kind of crazy that the Beach Boys had a song about that. It's like you really wouldn't associate this group singing a song like that that's so critical of kind of the more dark seediness, the dark side of like American culture like that. And I think that's really awesome. I love this song, one of my favorite Carl songs, probably the best lyrics in a Carl song, I would say. Carl really lived and died. His songs really live and die by the lyricists because he wasn't much of a lyricist. And Jack Riley and him really had a really special relationship. And this probably their best. I would say it's their best song lyrically. Melodically, I think probably Long Promised Road to Feel Flows is maybe a bit stronger melodically, but lyrically, this is probably their best effort. I love it. Great way to start off side two. Wonderful song.
David?
Well, y'all gonna hate me, but I don't get this song, and maybe I don't get it yet. I am perfectly open to having this be another one that grows on me eventually, but I'm not there yet. I struggle with what makes this appealing. To me, there's not a lot here that's being offered that's unique, that not any other band could do. The one thing I hear people say, because almost every serious Beach Boys fan I know that's even aware of this song loves this song. So I'm sure it's a me thing and not a song thing here. But everybody says I love the lyrics. Well, that's great, but I can't understand the lyrics. Like it seems buried in the mix. I don't know if the lyrics are balanced with the track very well. And I when I'm listening to the song, I'm not picking up the story. I don't know what it's about. And I have to read the words to get it, I guess. But it's just and it goes on long. I don't know. I never engage with it. I just haven't been able to hook into it. I think I said before, Leaving This Town might be the last one that on this album that clicks into place for me. That I was wrong. I wasn't thinking of this one. I don't. This is the one that I don't know if I'll ever get, but I hope that I do. I hope the light turns on for me one day, and it probably will, because that's how this whole album has gone for me. But right now, I'm just not there yet.
You'd hate Pink Floyd. You would hate Pink Floyd.
No, I look. My son is educating me on classic rock to a large degree, and I have been exposed to Pink Floyd now, and I can say that I like Dark Side of the Moon. I can listen to it, especially on a long nighttime drive. I can put that album on, and I'm vibing to the whole thing.
I think you would hate Animals though, because Animals is like each song in Animals, or at least the main tracks besides Pigs on the Wing. There's 3 songs, and each of them are like over 11 minutes, and have like some of Roger Waters' like deepest lyrics about capitalism. I think you would hate that. Like that wouldn't click with you. You would hate with Dogs, that 17-minute song, and it's like harmlessly. Well, that's Sheep. Sheep is like harmlessly passing your time in the grass. Like you would hate that, because that's like it's like The Traitor, but like on steroids. And then you have like a 20-minute guitar solo in the middle of it. So
speaking of albums with long songs, I saw Inagata Devita at the record store, like probably like an old pressing, and like
Iron Butterfly.
Yeah, Iron Butterfly, and like one song takes up the whole side of the LP.
Yeah.
Let me show you Echoes. That's 24 minutes. And like there's only 6 minutes of that is lyrics. The rest is all instrumental. Gotta love metal.
No, but David, what you were saying, that's totally fair though. Like this song, I will say, like I've said, this album as a whole was kind of a grower for me. This song, I don't, I remember the first time I heard it, I don't think I like loved it. I think I liked it, but I don't think I was like crazy about it. I will say, you did say it feels long. I will say it does feel a little long. I think they could have cut maybe a minute off of maybe like that second part. It does kind of feel like that by the time it's over, I'm kind of ready for it to wrap up. But I just love it, and I love the way that Carl sings the lyrics, like that part where they're like, banish them from the prairies and the hillside, clear them from. He sings it so well, and it's just a great song. So, but I think it'll grow on you, David. I really do. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this one, like a year from now.
Okay.
Just out of curiosity, what are your thoughts on like some of Carl's other songs, like Long Promised Road?
Love them. I love Long Promised Road, and I love those lyrics. I was talking about the lyrics to California, but I love the lyrics, to that one, and I love Phil Flows. I love everything. Those two songs in particular, those are my favorite Carl songs. Love both of them.
I kind of wish this song went back to that opening like melody, that opening like style, like the kind of like instead of just being two parts, it goes back, and like at the very end for maybe like a minute, it kind of goes back to that like a original style and like ends on that like uplifting note. But I guess maybe part of it just adds to the song, that maybe that it ends on that like melancholic kind of like softer part too.
If the song is about manifest destiny and exploring the American West, which is what I thought it was about, and now Jake's telling me that it's about African colonialism.
Well, it's something with the like the way they treated natives. Yeah, of like I think just in general. Yeah.
But if it's about that manifest destiny theme, then it totally fits on this album. With alongside the California Saga suite. So I mean, I get that part of it, but when I'm listening to the song, I'm not picking up on that. I don't come away with, oh, that's what the song was about. So maybe I'll get it one day. We'll see.
Yeah, for me, it's like certain lyrics that kind of like it sticks out to me, like the banish them part and clear them from the mountains, and the like those lyrics kind of stick out to me where I kind of notice it more, But I will say I don't know if it is necessarily like the greatest produced song. Like I do think that they could have upped some of the vocals. Like for example, like I think Marilyn and Diane, Brian's wife and sister, or his wife's sister, is they're on here on the backing vocals, and so is Brian. But you can't really hear them super well. Now, if you listen to on the Sail on Sailor box set, they have like the backing track for the Trader, and you can hear those vocals way more. And I wish they had upped those in the mix a little bit, because I think it's cool to hear them. I think they add to the song. So
well, I'll explore what they have for it on the Sail On box set, because that box set did a lot for me in unlocking a lot of other stuff, especially the Blondie Ricky stuff. I have a much better appreciation for it all now. So yeah, I'll give it an exploration.
All right. So we'll move on to the second track on side 2. I know, David, this is another one you said you're not necessarily too fond of right now, but this is a song that I really love. I know, Riley, you're a big fan of this one as well, and it's Leaving This Town. So this song, as I mentioned earlier, I believe this was a Ricky Fataar kind of started this composition, and then I think the others kind of helped them finish. I think it was like Blondie and Carl and Mike. I really love this song. This was a grower for me. Initially, it didn't really do anything for me, but I really do love it now. I love just the vibe of this song. It has a very melancholic vibe, both in like the piano, the melody, the lyrics. Really love the lyrics on this one. And it's just a really moving song for me. The one part, I've mentioned this before, I initially was not crazy about the big like solo in the middle, like the prog like solo in the middle with the keyboard. It's grown on me. I don't mind it now. I do wish it was a little bit shorter. I know, Riley, you've joked that you wished it was like 15 minutes or something, but I don't mind it. I think it's fine, but I definitely enjoy all the other parts of the song more. But it's really a unique track. It shows the Beach Boys kind of going like full out prog. And I also kind of hear a little bit of like, in terms of like this being kind of like a ballad, I kind of hear a little like Elton John influence in this too. I feel like kind of like from around the time of I forgot what the album's called, but the album that has like Country Comfort and Where To Now St. Peter. I forgot what that album's called. It's like Amarina or something, but it's like a very like kind of has like that similar vibe, I feel like, to Holland. So that's kind of what I get from this song. But I really love this song a lot, and I would say it's probably in my top 3 on the album. So what do you guys
The album's called Tumbleweed Connection.
Tumbleweed Connection. Yes, yes. That kind of get that vibe from it. What do you guys think of this song?
Oh, this was one of the first songs of the album that like really clicked with me, and it was because of that keyboard solo. Or I don't know if it's keyboard or synth. I think it's keyboards though. That like right away, that hooked me in. Like I was like a little bit bored at first, and then like, but I kept pushing, and then I listened to that keyboard, so I'm like, all right, this shit rips. I'm kind of curious if like Pink Floyd like did a version of this, because I could see like David Gilmour on vocals and Richard Wright doing that like 15-minute keyboard solo. That would be awesome. Like the live version of this one, I like a lot better because of that keyboard solo live, and it's so cool.
Is it a keyboard on the live track? Because I thought it was a guitar.
I think it's a keyboard. I think it's a keyboard live version.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I would really like to hear that. Like, I really want it to be longer. I want the song to be longer. This is the most prog I think the Beach Boys ever got. And I know Matt made a comment like you're looking for like Pink Floyd and the Beach Boys. Nah, I really wish the Beach Boys just kind of like continued in that like weird direction.
Yeah.
I like the Beach Boys best when they're trying different styles. That's why like in my top 5 albums, I have like 5 completely different sounding albums. I like when the Beach Boys explore other territories, and this is like easily the most prog they get. I'm like, I like to hear that improvised live version of that like keyboard solo. I think this is one of like Ricky's finest moments as a songwriter with the band too. I really like it. One of my favorite songs on the album. I think next to Big Sur, this might be my favorite. It's either that or Steamboat, but this is like the pinnacle of them, like being prog, in my opinion. It's on this album. This is what makes Holland a prog album for me.
Matt.
I know, yeah, I made the joke about you trying to find Pink Floyd. I remember what song I was talking about when I said that, but I really enjoy this. I think this is another one that I thought was kind of weird the first time I listened to it, but it's really grown on me. I'm with Riley. Give me a side of that. Take a whole side of an LP and make it that piano solo or whatever that is, and we're talking because it's awesome. Lyrically though, I really enjoy it too. Probably my favorite lyric. Woke from a dream to see reflections all around me of new realities. I think that's really awesome. I think that's the first thing that comes on after the long proggy thing. Yeah, I really enjoy this song. It's always kind of cool to hear Blondie, just because like I think like he kind of added like a little bit of a jolt of energy to the group, with his vocals and with him and Ricky, the vibe that they brought to the band. So it's always a really nice pleasure to hear them because they didn't really have too many leads, but it was cool to hear. I really enjoy the song. I think it fits well on the album. I agree with you, Jake. It's kind of melancholic. It's kind of almost haunting in a way, honestly, the song.
Yeah.
I think it's a very haunting song. And it's like it kind of is a message that we can all kind of like relate to, I think, where you're kind of like leaving the past, you're leaving that behind, you're going on to new things, and you're kind of scared, you don't know what to expect. So yeah, I think it's really awesome, and I'm with Riley. Let's expand that solo and let's make a whole 22-minute side of an LP of it.
Yeah. I forgot to mention I like that little like Mike Love like bass like notes that he's singing. It's like this town.
Oh, I love that too. Too.
That really that's so damn cool.
Yeah. No, and I love, like you guys, like you mentioned, the lyrics, they're very, I agree with you, Matt, very like haunting. Like it's like moving on from like some sort of struggle or crisis that you've dealt with, like when your friends have all gone, leaving this town for another one. And that lyric you mentioned, Matt, really great lyric as well. I love that too. David, what do you think of this one? Well, I think we kind of know what you think. But...
Well, no, I mean, I am in the middle of warming up to this. This is the song that's currently working on me. So what's happened is like when I said years ago when I first heard this album, I wasn't ready for the Blondie and Ricky sound to be a part of what the Beach Boys were about. I just thought it was so different that I just rejected it. And now all of that does appeal to me more, but it's appealing to other parts of my musical taste that have nothing to do with the Beach Boys. I still think it's very, very different from, and I'm not just talking about like the Surf and Car early stuff. I mean, I'm talking about just overall. It's just not what the Beach Boys ever really did, except when Blondie and Ricky were the ones doing it. And I have come to appreciate it and enjoy it. The Sail On box set did a lot to get me thinking in the right direction. And this song is fine. I don't hate it. It's in the beginning stages of warming up to me. The long solo in the middle is my favorite part. I mean, I can listen to that for a long time. And the live version that's on the in concert album, I really honestly I thought that was a guitar. I thought that was Blondie shredding on guitar. I love the live. I think I like the live version better. What holds me back about this song is the fact that I love "We Got Love" so much better. Like I would really would. This is just not the song I would pick. If I only get one slot for these guys, it would not be this song. It would be either "We Got Love" or "Hard Time" or "Oh Sweet Something" or it's any of. I mean, "Oh Sweet." I mean, I love all those. "Oh Sweet Something" might be my favorite of what I just named, but "We Got Love" was almost on this album, and I wish it was because again, I still don't. What appeals to me about it has nothing to do with my fondness for the Beach Boys, but for what it is, I love it. So I have flipped on the Blondie and Ricky stuff. I love all that stuff. I love that it's a part of the Beach Boys catalog. But if I only get one song on this album from them, this is not the one I would pick. I would pick one of the others that I named. And like Riley was saying, one thing I love about this band is the wide variety of styles and sounds that they do have. So many people that are not aware just have them, slotted, pigeonholed for that early sound, and they were doing so much more than that. And to anybody who comes at me with, they all sound alike and who cares about the doo-wop surfers or whatever, I will immediately go to a Blondie and Ricky song. I'm like, really? Okay, well, listen to this one. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. There's no way that's the Beach Boys, And I'm usually giving them "We Got Love" or "Oh Sweet Something." And it never fails to they come at me, with the hat in their hand, like, I'm sorry, man, I didn't know. I had no idea. So I like this song. I don't love it. I like it. I mean, like I said, it's not that I mean, maybe I do love it, but I just, again, I would put something else in that spot if I could.
So my take on "We Got Love." So I originally didn't care for the song at all. And at some point I listened to it within the past couple months again. I do really like the live version on In Concert. I think that song sounds awesome on In Concert. The studio version, I think it's lacking something. I'm not a huge fan of the studio version, and I can see why why Warner Reprise told them, or why that was the song that was chosen to be dropped from the album. But I can see why you like it. I do like those other songs you mentioned a lot. I love "Hard Time." I don't know if it necessarily would have fit on this album, just based on the other material. I think it's a little too, almost too rocking to a fit. I know the Trader has some energy to it too, but it's not totally rocking where "Hard Time" is literally a rock song, but I love that song. "Oh Sweet Something," I know Riley's a big fan of that one. I love it too. I think it's a great song. And then also you had some other outtakes around this time, like "Carry Me Home," which is a really haunting Dennis ballad as well. But yeah, I mean, "Leaving This Town," I would never replace it. I love it. But I can see when people say they don't care for this song, I can see why, because like you said, it's a very different track. It did take some time for me to warm up to, as did most of this album. So I totally understand it. It's not like I'm shocked by that, so. All right. So we'll leave this town and go on to track 3 on side 2, which is a really pretty Dennis ballad called "Only With You." So this song was written by Dennis and sung by Carl on the album. And this one, I just think it's really pretty. It's very mellow and peaceful. Carl delivers a really nice vocal on it. It's just really, I guess the word to describe it, I would say just sweet, but in a very genuine way. It doesn't feel it doesn't feel cheesy. It just feels genuine. I will say I'm not a huge fan of the part in the middle of this song where they keep going, "All I want to do, ooh, is spend my life with you, ooh." I don't know why they thought that was good, but I find that very annoying. But besides that, I really do like this song. I love the way it ends, how the piano comes in at the very end, and the way it fades on that. It ends on that one note at the end. It's very haunting. I just, maybe that's the wrong word, but I love the way it ends. But melancholic maybe is the word I'm looking for. But I really like this song. I know some people, I've heard some Beach Boys fans find this one kind of boring. I guess I can see that. I just think it's a really pretty song. And I think I think it's a great choice that Dennis had Carl sing this one, but I think he really delivers it well. So what do you guys think of "Only With You"?
Yeah, I know Matt kind of calls Forever the wedding song that never was. I kind of think that Forever already is the wedding song. I mean, they did it in Full House. But I think this is a very, very beautiful song from Dennis. It's a Dennis and Mike track. They collaborated on that, which is kind of
That's
weird.
right.
Those
Sorry, I
two
forgot.
were like polar opposite members of the band. They like freaking hated each other. I mean, I know like Dennis like and Mike got into a bunch of fights, but they've collaborated on a couple of tracks. I think Mike has a writing credit on Pacific Ocean Blue, or and so that I think when they come together, they usually have like a really pretty song like this. This was the grower for me on the album. It took a while to get kind of used to it because I mean I'm a big Dennis fan, but I did think it was boring for a while, but it really started to click with me. It's such a pretty song, and I think that when Dennis and Carl write songs for each other and they trade vocals, I think that that usually like means that it's going to be a really good song for me. Because I mean, there's a couple of those on LA that I really enjoy, and those songs like make the album for me. So I really like those. But I really like Only With You, very pretty song. And I think it's the wedding song that never was.
Matt.
I think it's a pretty song, but I think it's kind of a little boring, honestly. It just doesn't really like it feels a little one-dimensional for me. Like it's a pretty song, but it doesn't really go anywhere. That's like the problem I have with it. Like it's and I love Dennis and I don't hate the song, but it's a little boring. Honestly, I think I kind of like the version that was like the outtake from Pacific Ocean Blue better. I kind of like it with his more raw voice. I think it just kind of again it adds that little oomph for me. But I still like the song. It's still a very good song, but it's probably my least favorite on side two.
David.
I love it now. Again, this is one that I dismissed early on and never really looked back at it, and I had forgotten about it. And then I heard it on the Sell On box set, and honestly, when I didn't even remember it, I didn't recall it. When I heard it on the Sell On box set, I was like, "Oh, this is great! This is another great one." Totally like didn't even know that it was on Holland. And there's differences in the two versions. I think I like the one on the box set a little better, but then, when I realized it, I went back and again, that was just another piece that fell into place where this album has continued to just grow on me. So I do like it. It is, I mean, I get it. You can call it boring. It's slow. It's kind of a real kind of relaxed acoustic vibe. Carl is in such fine voice here, though. I mean, this is a great performance from Carl. This is that sweet, gentle Carl voice that you love so much. And I don't think anybody else in the band could have sung it, could have done it justice. So I like it. I laugh you calling it the forever being the wedding song, because my wife and I literally chose that as our entrance music to our reception. So we walked into Forever being played. I wasn't aware of this song at the time. Maybe we would have picked it. But yeah, I really like it a lot, probably because of Carl's performance. But Jake, I agree with you that the oohs, they did that a little too much. They could have done without that.
Just to clarify, David, when you said that's cool that you walked out to Forever. It was the Sunflower version, correct?
Yes, it was the Dennis version, not the John Stamos version. Yes.
Right.
Have mercy.
Although, I see somewhere that the Summer in Paradise album only sold like 1,000 copies or less than 1,000 copies. Well, I have one of them. I have it on CD. I bought it in '92 from the record store.
Yeah,
I can tell you this: the ink on the CD has it's wiped off. It was done cheaply. But I'm one of those guys. But no, this was the Sunflower version. Yeah.
What you were saying with Carl's vocal on this song, like I feel like Carl, like maybe if Carl wasn't singing this, I would find it more like uninteresting, like if they had picked someone else to sing it. But yeah, his voice is just so smooth, and like this is really where I think Carl was like the thing with Carl. We talked about this before. It's like with a lot of singers, like their voice like maybe gets worse with age. Carl just got better and better, I feel like, and I feel like this '70s period especially is like where he really starts sounding just incredible. And I feel like he can take a song that maybe like musically isn't the most interesting, but like make it really enjoyable because of how great his vocals are. I think of a song like I know you mentioned you like LA, like the song Full Sail. like musically, maybe that's not the most interesting song, but his vocal on that is so good that like I actually really love that song because I think he just sells it with his vocal. So I just think Carl, like his voice is just so sweet and genuine, and really makes this song moving. So I really personally do love this song. I do understand why people maybe find it a little boring. I wouldn't say it's like one of Dennis's like top tier compositions, but I think it's a very enjoyable song. I think it fits in well in the album, and I like where they sequenced it as well.
What if we had Mike Love sing it? It's like, love so many things.
That we do. Oh my god, because love is in the lyric. That's right. Oh man, that's perfect. Go.
Last love.
Last. Yeah, we can get that cover on the Last Love album. All right, so if we're done with Only With You, so I guess we'll move on to the final track on Holland on side 2. And this is Funky Pretty. So I can totally remember when I first heard this song, it did nothing for me. I think I was more, it wasn't like I hated it, but I was just like, what is this? Like I was very like just confused by it. Like, what am I supposed to think of this? Now, honestly, it's become one of my favorite songs on the album. I love it. It's one of Brian's compositions, and I think you can tell it's very unique. It's got a very unique sound to it. I love the lyrics about like astrology and just like very fun lyrics about like Pisces lady. And I love how like all the guys, like pretty much all the guys, their vocals are featured on this, like especially at the end where you have Blondie singing like Funky Pretty, and then you got Mike singing and Carl singing a part. I love how they go back and forth throughout the song. I love it. And I love that part in the middle with like Al, where it's like, and there's a silent night at the sea, and if you're cosmically conscious, you'll be like, I love the lyrics. It's just like such a fun song, and definitely has Brian's, you can tell, like, I feel like if you had to pick which songs Brian wrote on here, I feel like I would guess this one. It does kind of sound like a Brian song. So what do you guys think of Funky Pretty?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Like you can really tell which tracks were done by Brian, and it sounds weird because I mean I'm a big fan of Sail on Sailor, but like the Brian stuff on here is like not some of my favorite stuff on the album. I really like the group efforts like that, like the California Saga and like Leaving This Town. But Funky Pretty is such like a Brian song, and it is kind of what you'd expect with like a Brian and like Ricky Fattar, Blondie Chaplin style, where it's like rocking, but it's also talking about like astrology for whatever reason. Um, I had the same experience as Jake, where like I didn't really care for it. I was just like, yeah, that's definitely a song. And then like I was like walking back from work one day because I mean I didn't have a car, so I just walked. And like for whatever reason, I was listening to Holland, and like this song came on. I'm like, oh yeah, this shit rocks. And maybe it's because of like it was like a March day, and I was like kind of cold outside, very damp, and it was just kind of like fit the mood. But for whatever reason, it clicked. I think it's a very fun song. I think it's kind of like a better version of You Need a Mess of Help to Stand Alone. It kind of like has that same style to it, except it does that, but like much better. It just clicks. I think you kind of need that for those like Brian and Ricky and Blondie kind of tracks. You need that kind of like funny style to it where they're talking about astrology and like a Pisces lady and all that crap. It works. It's a great closer to this kind of era for the band. I really enjoy it as like a fun song. I don't think it's anything like musically complex, but it rocks. I love it.
I forgot to mention just real quick. I love the middle section too, like the Houdini, I'll see like the part where like they're like saying the cities, but they're saying them weird, or the locations. I love that too. It's like that's might be my favorite part of this song. What do you think of this, Matt?
Yeah, I think it's a very fun song. I love the lyrics about astrology. A Pisces lady loves romance. One of my favorite lyrics. I also love what's the other part I like? I'm looking at the lyrics right now.
The middle section, maybe.
That, and then I also like, okay, yeah. I look in the paper each day, wondering what my horoscope will say.
Yeah,
like that part too. Yeah, the Queen in Copenhagen, the Dream of Amsterdam. Yeah, they say it all weird. I also like how like a lot of people in the group have a solo where it's like it kind of jumps from person to person to person. But yeah, I think it's a really enjoyable song. It's pretty funky sounding, which I like. I love the Moog again. Yeah, really enjoy it. I think it's a great way to close out the record too.
David, what do you think of this one?
I like it a lot. This, like I said, I started off with Just Like in Sail On in California. This was the next song. This was the first one that I didn't initially get that I suddenly started liking. I think it's the rhythm. I think it's the funkiness of it. I think it's the tone that they were able to get. I really do like how you're switching between different singers. You know, you're hearing different people in the band, so I really like that part a lot. I and like all the kind of cosmic, you know,
Mhm.
weird lyrics. It's just kind of fun. I think it works. I used to think it went on too long. Like it got to a point where there were no more changes left in the song, and it just went like maybe a minute and a half too long. But I don't think that anymore. Now I think it doesn't go long enough. I mean, I can keep listening to that. So I think it's a lot of fun, and I've got it in my playlist. So I give it a big thumbs up.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great way to close the album too. I think it's a
Mhm.
good track to open because you want to close on a strong song, you know. And I feel like the Beach Boys kind of have a history of not doing that. Like on Friends, it closes with Transcendental Meditation, which I think is the worst song on that album. On Love You, it closes with Love As a Woman, which I think is the weakest song on that album. So I feel like this was a really good choice to close this album. I think it was a really strong closer. So
Get the worst one.
uh,
Change.
well, that's just that's your opinion, Matt.
No, the worst album closer is Bull Sessions with Big Daddy.
Oh no,
Oh,
Riley loves that one.
Riley is not
Forever.
gonna like that.
Forever.
What?
John Stamos is forever.
Oh, well,
You
okay.
know that,
I
right?
mean, all right.
Oh,
There's
I
that.
forgot about that. Well, that does again. That's one of those songs I just pretend doesn't exist. So.
Right. It doesn't exist. Yeah. I'll try to pretend Bull Sessions doesn't exist.
All right, so I guess that's it for our track by track rundown. We are going to get into the in concert album a little bit, but before we do, I do want to just mention like a few things that have been said about this album by like critics or other musicians. So something interesting about this album. So there are some musicians who really like it. Elvis Costello called this album one of his favorite records of all time, which is really interesting. I believe I read somewhere that Tom Petty really liked this album as well, and I think he said that Carl, especially on this album, is like sounds amazing. I think Tom said he really liked the song "The Traitor," which I obviously love as well. So that's really cool. Um, this album, it had kind of had mixed reviews at the time, as I mentioned earlier, but there were some good things that were said as well. Robert, our favorite music critic, Robert Kreisgau of the Village Voice, so it says he praised the sound quality of Holland, but believed that the album had strayed too far from what the Beach Boys did best, stating, "I suppose that in time their tongue-tied travelogue of Big Sur may seem no more escapist than fun, 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 but who will ever believe it's equally simple, direct, or innocent?" So I think that's kind of an interesting, which I think
Hmm.
that kind of gets at like what you were saying, David, where it's like you have a certain like when you listen to this album, you're not listening to it because like you want to hear like a Beach Boys album. You're listening to it because this satisfies a different taste, like a different music taste for you, right? So I feel
Right.
like that kind of plays into that a little bit. There's also a quote from NME's Richard Williams in Britain. He said, "I expect more from the Beach Boys than from anyone else. Holland has the goods." So it's pretty positive, I would say.
Mhm.
And I do think something that helps this album too is that Carl and the Passions was a bit of a come down for sure, especially after Surf's Up. So I think in comparison, like this album definitely seemed like a big upgrade over Carl and the Passions because if this had followed Surf's Up, I think like it's still enjoyable, but I think maybe like it would still be viewed as like a come down record because I do think Surf's Up. I know Riley, you love this album a lot, but to me, Holland versus Surf's Up, I do give Surf's Up a bit of an edge there, just because I think the highlights on Surf's Up are so high. Um, but yeah, I think it's great that this album that a lot of people seem to enjoy it a lot. It seems like a lot of Beach Boys fans really like this album, and I think it's got some of like their greatest '70s songs on it, and some of my favorite Beach Boys songs. Period. So this album was ranked number 21 in the Guardian's list of the top 100 albums that don't appear in all the other top 100 albums of all time. So that's cool. It's like basically acknowledging that like this is an underrated album. So that's very cool. And it did make a couple of it made number 648 in the all-time top 1,000 albums by Colin Larkins, which is interesting. And it made number 100 in a list by OOR Magazine's list of the 100 best albums of all time. I don't know if I would personally rank it that high, but that's cool that it made that list, though. In terms of some of the negative reviews, John Bush from AllMusic, which is like a popular like online music critic site, he said the Holland was a surprisingly weak effort. Douglas Woke of Blender thought that the band got way too self-indulgent, recording poetry, flutes, and Moog solos, which again, the poetry is referring to like Beaks of Eagles, which I mean, I understand why people find that a little pretentious. I understand that. John Stebbins, the Beach Boys biographer, he called the record a very respectable effort, though not of the caliber of Pet Sounds or Sunflower. I would personally agree with that. I don't think it quite reaches the highs of those albums, but I do think it's a solid like album, like in terms of being cohesive. And John Tobler praised the California Saga trilogy and The Traitor, but decreed that some of the other tracks were less than exceptional. So, and then my last thing I wanted to share, Brian, in his book, I Am Brian Wilson, he said of Holland, he said, there are some great songs on that record. Steamboat kicks ass. I really like Only With You and Funky Pretty too. It's a damn good album no matter where or how we made it. So that's kind of cool that I'm glad that Brian looks back at this album positively. Obviously sometimes, as we've said before, like sometimes musicians are like the hardest critics on their own material, like you hear John Lennon trash a bunch of the old Beatles songs that he wrote in certain interviews, but I'm glad that Brian actually like really likes this album and the work that they did on it. So I guess since we want to get to some of the in concert album stuff, do you want to kind of take it from here, Riley, and lead into that discussion?
Yeah, I mean, the Ricky and Blondie era is really known for their live material. I feel so, because I mean, they like I said, kind of like going to that like prog stuff where they're like improvising and they're like really like rocking out this less like structured concerts where it's like we're gonna play these 12 songs. And I mean, even kind of here in the live at Carnegie set that they released on Sail On, where Jack Riley's like saying like, well, vote, would you guys want to do Surfing USA or whatever. It was a lot more like on the spot. It was less like structured and it was very loose, and it really rocked. And then Concert came out in 73. It was the last album with Ricky and Blondie on it. I really dig this album. It's one of my favorite like live albums out there. I think it might be my favorite Beach Boys live album. I might prefer Carnegie at some points, but I mean, they really did cherry pick some of the best live material around this time. Some of my favorite songs from these live sets. I mentioned Leaving This Town. I mean, this is the better version. This is where they have the, like extended keyboard solo. I think it was I think it was maybe even like Billy Hinchy. I kind of forget who did it. I'm sure Justin would be able to correct me on that, but he's not here. But that keyboard solo alone like makes that song for me. I like some of the rocking versions of the other tracks they did, like the Help Me Rhonda on this album, like really like bluesy. It really rips where I didn't, expect it to. Like I didn't expect like a bluesy, like hard rocking version of Help Me Rhonda like really click with me, because that's one of my favorite tracks by the band. But it freaking rocks. I really like We Got Love on this. I know I prefer the studio version, but I mean the live version is probably just as good. That didn't make it to Holland, so I'm glad that it made it on here in some like release. Really rocks. What shit was the other ones I wanted to talk about? Oh crap, I didn't finish my list.
I love the live versions of like even the oldies on here. Like I love like the Surfing USA and Fun. Like you really hear the band, like how good the live band was at that time. Like they really put a lot of energy into those songs. And I think I've mentioned before, I actually listened to like the live in concert version of Fun on this album more than I do the studio version. So I love it.
Yeah, there's a Pet Sounds track on here. I forgot which one that
Carolina,
for some reason just rips.
You Still Believe in Me?
You Still Believe in Me. And I like the I think Caroline No is also on here.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. Like I think it was Carl taking lead vocals on them.
Yeah.
So good.
And,
well, Al, I think Al
good.
is doing You Still Believe in Me, and Carl's got Caroline No.
Yeah, they have no right to be this good, like as like 70s like rocking versions. Well, I guess they're not really rocking, but like compared to like the Pet Sounds where you have like the Wrecking Crew on it, and these are like guys just playing those songs with like guitars and like keyboards, and just for whatever reason it just clicks. It's so damn good.
Huh? Oh yeah, no, I gave it a listen. I know I'm not the biggest live album guy, but no, this is a really rocking album. Like you said, it's kind of cool to hear like these songs in new context, kind of like new renditions of the song. I think Ricky and Blondie and all the other great guys gave a nice burst of energy to the live band at the time. I really like hearing the Pet Sounds songs kind of stripped back a little bit. Because I think that's some people that don't really like Pet Sounds feel that it's a little overdone in the studio, a little too ornate for some people. So it's nice to hear kind of stripped back. I do love You Still Believe in Me. Another one I want to give a shout out to is The Wild Honey from the Carnegie. That was really good. That's a really cool rendition of that song. But yeah, no, it's a really awesome album. It really is. It really is something special. Admittedly, I'm not the biggest fan of We Got Love in any version. I just think it's kind of an okay song. I've never been a huge fan of it. I don't really miss it on Holland, so I'm kind of fine that it was removed, honestly.
That Wild Honey from Carnegie's like my favorite live song from the band. I listen to that version like more than the Wild Honey version, which is kind of weird. But
Another one I like is the Help Me Rhonda with Dennis on lead. I think it's from around this time. That's on the Made in California box set. I really like that too.
David, what do you think of the live?
I love this album. I think it's of their regular live albums, not counting the digital archive releases and stuff like that, but the ones that they came out in their catalog. I think this is easily their best one. I love the variety of the material. You get the oldies there toward the end, of course, in that rocking format. But you also get You Still Believe Me and Caroline No, which, seem like surprises to be in the live set. Also plenty of stuff from Holland on here. So I think this is an important album just in terms of documenting this band in this moment in time. Everybody agrees this is them at their peak as a live performing unit. And Blondie and Ricky did a lot to bring that kind of energy and that kind of vibe to that era. And they're well represented here. So I think I love every version that we hear, every track on here. I think they do a fantastic job with it. The fun. I mean, on the studio, on the Shutdown Volume 2 studio version, you hear Brian's falsetto like one time, and on the second one, they're already fading out, and it's over. And it's like, that's my favorite part.
Me too.
I judge versions of fun based entirely on how long they let the ending go, and so this one on this live album wins because it goes on forever, which is exactly what I want. It's a lot of fun. So I love it a lot.
You must love the live Nebworth one because that one goes on for like 2.5 minutes.
I do. I think Nebworth is also an important live album because it captures all 6 of them, and it was kind of at the it was before Dennis was gone, obviously, and so I think that becomes important for that reason. But this is and this is at a time when they weren't concerned with like trying to replicate the record. They weren't trying to capture that early '60s sound. They were trying to turn it into something new and something different, and I think that's great. I think it works. I really these 2 albums together, Holland and in concert. I think you're comparing Holland to what it was like coming after Carl and the Passions. I compare it to what came after Holland. When you see what happened to their output from this point forward, it makes this era just look even more special. So I really wish we could see the timeline where the band continued in this direction, and this is the way the rest of the 70s went for them. Which is me saying that I have turned completely around on Blondie and Ricky and the sound they brought to the band. I think, and Carl was of course a big part of that. So you put Carl, Blondie, and Ricky in charge of this group for the rest of the 70s. I wish we could see that. I wish I could see what that was like.
I was gonna say, yeah, they'd be releasing like Pink Floyd albums where they're like doing 17-minute songs. Be sick.
No, I was gonna say like I think we've said this before on the podcast. Like it would have been great to just get like one more like Blondie Ricky album, just to see like where would they go with the sound from here? Because it's like right. Carl and the Passions, they were kind of finding their place in the band. Like they kind of do sound like they don't necessarily fit in super well. By Holland, it feels very cohesive. Like they have totally gelled on that album, And then like obviously the live act was great at that point. Like it would have been great to see like what would have followed that if they hadn't left. And obviously I know Ricky hung around a little bit until like 74 before he departed. But it would have been really interesting. Instead, we got a few years of nothing and then 15 big ones. So yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the fairy tale. What do you guys think of the Mount Vernon and Fairway?
I think it works as a curiosity. It's weird. It's very, very weird. I like some of the pieces of it. Like I like the Pied Piper, I better get back in bed. Hope I see you again. I like that. And I like the glow and magic transistor radio. But all this like weird voice and Jack Riley's narration, it's just weird. Like I don't know what. I think it's just kind of like almost looking in the mind of a madman, honestly. Like it's just weird.
That's
with the music.
Go ahead. I was gonna say I remember I was I was trying to find like a copy of Holland, and I eventually found one, and I found another one after that. And neither of them had the fairy tale, and I never listened to it for whatever reason. And I was like, I'm gonna listen to it on the EP, and then I get the Sail On box set for like 200 something dollars. I'm like, finally, I could listen to the fairy tale, and I listened to it. I'm like, this is kind of crap. Like,
I like pieces of the music, but as a whole, it's just
Yeah.
weird. It doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
there's the I really like the music to it. I think the music's really good, and it's kind of like a showcase almost for like Love You, like eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
The music alone. But like you kind of added in like the narration and like some of the lyrics. Like I like Jack Riley as a narrator. I just don't like the words here that are coming out of his mouth. I like the way they sound. He's a really good narrator. He has a good narration voice. It's just the words that he's saying are freaking weird.
And I don't think it's much of a story either. It kind of just goes nowhere. It sounds like somebody just kind of like wrote a story on the spot and then just didn't edit it, didn't like come up with like a conclusion. It's just like nothing, you know. And I'm kind of the same way as you guys. Like I like parts of the musical, like parts of this. Like there's fragments of it that I enjoy, but like as a whole, it's just an oddity. And it's interesting because like I think they basically put this out just to satisfy Brian because Brian really wanted to do this fairy tale thing, and I think he originally wanted it on the album, and they basically told him no, like it's not going on the album. And then I think he basically got like really upset, or like he didn't want to participate. So then they kind of just to satisfy him, I think they included it as an EP. I'd love to like see like people's reaction at that time, like putting on that, like after listening to Holland and putting that on their record player and listening to it, just seeing like what people thought of that. Like people were probably like, "What the hell is this?" You know?
Yeah, it's strange. I've only when I listen to the album, I don't include that. You know, it's to me it's something separate.
Oh yeah.
And I listened to it through one time years ago. That was enough for me. I will tell you that I did listen to it through again this week in the run up to this show, and it was probably only the second time I've ever listened to it all the way through. And I agree, it's weird, and I agree that as a story, it doesn't really come together. You know, there's not a lot there just in terms of just a fictional story that works. But also the music, everything I was saying is I agree with. The music itself, I think is fantastic. The Pied Piper, to hear Brian sing, he comes in full voice on the Pied Piper stuff, and you don't really get that on this album. So it's just welcome to hear Brian's voice there. But you got to be in some kind of mood to really appreciate this. I think if you're on a long late night drive and you're half asleep, or maybe you're having trouble going to sleep at night, you need to put something on quiet to help you relax and go to bed. Maybe you can fall asleep to this stuff. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean, it can be, if you're in like a half days kind of mode, maybe I can see it being kind of mesmerizing or whatever, but that's just, that would be a very specific circumstance for you to be able to appreciate it at all. So I don't think it quite works. It's very weird. It might be Brian at his weirdest. Well, no, I shouldn't say that either. But I can say that, you know what? It's still better than 15 Big Ones. So I'd still rather have the band and have Brian trying weird things than to completely lose their kind of progressive direction. So
yeah, no, I was gonna say, you mentioned the about the band getting weird. I feel like this album kind of shows like Brian starting to get a little weirder in terms of like songwriting and stuff, or like some of the things he was coming up with. Because you had the fairy tale, you had Funky Pretty's kind of an odd song, it's got like the Moog, and it kind of almost previews Love You a little bit, I feel like. And then not long after this, you had like a year or two, you had the Caribou sessions where you have them recording like Battle Hymn of the Republic and like weird stuff like that, which is a bit interesting. And then you had Rolling Up to Heaven, which is like, what the hell, So an interesting kind of I feel like it's almost like a transitional period. Like you kind of see Brian, I think you almost mentioned Matt, like almost like showing like decline in like mental decline, like in his songwriting almost. So you can tell like maybe he's not well at this time.
Yeah. I mean, that was actually a good point, because I mean that kind of that like 74 stuff that they recorded, like besides Battle of the Republic, like Barnyard Blues, and like you have Dennis starting out with River Song, and you have Good Timin coming in. Like it was weird because like some of that stuff, like especially like Barnyard Blues and like I guess California Feeling and
oh yeah
like My Love Lives On, you kind of have that like it's Holland-esque, but it also has the elements of what's coming after in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's like Barnyard Blues, you have that kind of like Holland-esque production, but then like I mean, even like with Good Timin', like that version of it, where it's kind of like stripped back a lot. But you also melodically, it has those ideas that are like coming after. It's like weird stuff. But kind of curious what would have happened in '74 if they did do like a Caribou album and it was had some of that material. I don't think it would have been as good as Holland, but I mean, who knows?
No.
If they like actually like put in like a lot of effort. I mean, if they had like River Song, like that version of River Song with like the guitars,
Yes.
so damn good. I wish that was cleaned up. That would have been a great album opener for for the next Ricky and Blondie album, but it did not
Yeah.
happen.
Hey, I just want to say this as my kind of my summary thoughts of the album is that, I went from only liking two tracks to at this point, there's really only one that I don't like, and that's Trader. And I'm, like I said, I imagine that I'll probably eventually like that too. So it's been interesting to have this album grow on me like this, but I'm now at the point where I love it and respect it. And I also say that this conversation has made me like it more. I think I'm coming out of this liking and hearing everybody talk about all the tracks, liking it more than I did coming in. So it's quickly rising up my charts, I'd have to say.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a similar experience to you sometimes with like I'll listen to like people talk about an album. Like this happens sometimes with there's a YouTuber I watch that reviews a lot of like the Beatles solo stuff, and he'll say something and then I'll re-listen to it. And I'm like, oh, I get it now. Like I actually really like this. So I've had the same thing happen before. So it's really interesting. Sometimes just talking about music can really change your perspective on certain songs. So
yeah, that's cool.
Do you guys have any closing thoughts on Holland or any of the live material from around this time?
My second favorite Beach Boys album, but I think I said this before. It might get to number one in the future. I don't know. Today's going to be a tough hill to climb, though, because, I mean, I love the Today album so much. Like, everything on there, even Bull Sessions. I've mentioned that 1,000 times. Yeah.
Why don't you explain that to him, Matt? Riley, explain the Bull Sessions to Dave.
All right, you have all these, like, depressing Pet Sounds, like, ballads at the end of side 2. So many, like, downer songs. And I don't mean that as a bad thing, because those are my favorite songs in the album. She Knows Me Too Well and Please Let Me Wonder are in my top 10 favorite Beach Boys songs. But you have those like depressing songs at the end. Then after that, you kind of have this like almost like an epilogue where they're just like chilling and talking about a hamburger and just like guys being guys and just like enjoying themselves. It kind of works more as like an end credits rather than like a actual track. That's kind of my view on it.
Like almost like it's showing the listeners like they're human, like like they're human too. You listen to all this incredibly like produced music that's just like beyond amazing, and then like you're like, oh, but in the end they're just they're just young guys that are just like and they still have a good time like we all do. So I kind of get your point. I still to me the album ends on In the Back of My Mind. But
yeah. Like I think the last song is In the Back of My Mind, and Bull Sessions is like the like end credits, or like at the end of like some movies, they'll like play the credits and then they'll have like, well, Billy went on to like be a businessman kind of thing. Like that's kind of how I view it, is just like a gag at the end, and it's just like end credits, the album's over. Just kind of like, yeah, you know what I mean? I think at this point.
Yeah, but to me it sounds like somebody accidentally butt called you. Like when you sit on your phone and they're actually calling you, they don't know it, and you're just like overhearing some random thing happening on the other side of the room. It sounds like a butt call to me.
Don't ruin Bull Sessions. Let me enjoy that.
Is Bull Sessions the one where they say like they refer to the one guy, the like Dick Rising or whatever his name is?
Yes.
What? I think that's just
the only one that I actually listened to all the way through. I don't listen to Cassius Love or Sonny Wilson. I listen to Bull Sessions though.
Yeah.
It's like Dick Rising, and he's like, maybe he's like a fig. And it's
just love the name Bull Sessions with Big Daddy.
I know. It adds to it. I you guys are gonna be just as big fans of that track. But what were you gonna say, David?
I was just wondering, was there a song available that got pushed off the vinyl because they had to make room for Bull Sessions? Like, do we miss out on another great song? Was there anything sitting around?
There was stuff. There was material that they could have put on it, but like the big songs like Guess I'm Dumb and Sandy or Sherry She Needs Me, they weren't really like working on those quite yet. I mean, I'm sure Brian like was writing them or like had them in his head, but they weren't recorded yet, so they couldn't be on the album. Those like came literally like right after.
You know
Um,
what? My vote to go on the album, like for a track that was recorded by that time, I don't think they ever considered it to go on the album, but I know it was recorded before then. I do like
Oh
that.
yeah.
But they took the melody from County Fair and they made it like 10 times better, like into a really good song. I would have loved. I think that would have fit really well on side one with like all the other like upbeat poppy songs. So
yeah,
that'd be
that
my pick.
that would have been, but I feel like that was more. Yeah, that could have fit, but that would have been better for like uh all summer long or the production wise, because I feel like it melodically it fits, but production wise it doesn't quite fit. Like because I mean, even though like they were like those still like rocking like guitar songs on side one, it didn't have
Mhm.
that. Even like when I grow up and Good to My Baby still had like some of those like Wrecking Crew kind of sounds on it. But
Yeah, I agree. I love the song. I mean, they're actually making like wedding bells work in a rock song. And
Yeah.
it actually rocks hard. But I also agree that I think production wise, it wouldn't be a fit on today. But I do wish it was one that got included somewhere because I like it a lot.
I gotta be honest, County Fair's kind of been growing on me.
Yeah, it's Jake's favorite song, County Fair.
It's growing on. I don't think it's like my favorite off the debut, but like I gotta be honest, even when you kind of get to the hurrah hurrah like that part's kind of like it's starting to grow on me. I kind of dig it. I like it when at the end when she's like loser.
I do laugh at that. That is hilarious. I love that. But no, I'm just picturing you like listening to like get your headphones on. It's like hurry, hurry. You're like, oh, this is great. Like,
Not
oh my
quite.
god,
Like not there yet. But you know what? When
I'm telling you that song in amusement parks, just I can't.
I hate amusement parks, but I don't know. Maybe my band will do County Fair live, and I'll be able to do the the carnival guy.
You got if you do that, you got to record that for us. That
If
would
I
be
do any Beach Boys songs live, I'll record them.
Okay, so where do you rank Palisades Park?
I love Palisades Park.
That's solid. Sorry,
I love one of my favorite covers on 15 Big Ones.
But Holland's this shit slaps.
Yeah, it's
Love this
very
thing.
very good album. I agree. Great.
I love Holland. I love it.
Yep, I'm right there with you. I think unfortunately I feel like this is where it ends for the Beach Boys. Of course, those that love you, that's fine. But it's also more of a Brian Wilson album than a Beach Boys album. I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we're I guess you could say it's a good thing that the Beach Boys ended on a high note, ended in strong form. But also it's a shame that they couldn't keep that going. And I know that it had a lot, a lot of factors involved. There's behind the scenes drama that drove Blondie and Ricky out. And I also think, I personally, think that Murray dying had a detrimental effect on both Brian and Dennis, and I think that hurt them. And we both saw them spiral over the course of the rest of the decade. It's a shame, but I think the album is strong. I just wish. I feel like this is where they quit being like a real like important band, like progressive relevant band that was still trying and pushing forward and growing. I think this is where that ends, and that's a shame because I love it now. I didn't always love it, but I love it now.
Right, like I feel like this is the end of like the period where like you can consider them like cool. Like at that time, like right. I think like they like among again they still had that general image among people. Like you hear Beach Boys, you think of like the 60s stuff. But like I do think like at that time, like they were considered kind of cool. And then like once they got to like 15 Big Ones, they definitely had more of that oldies vibe. And again, like people loved them obviously, but like the people weren't viewing them like they did like bands like the Rolling Stones and groups like that. And again, they never did view them that way. But I do think that they had a lot more of like credibility in the early 70s. Like people really were taking them seriously. People really did like what they were doing. And then once Endless happened, 15 Big Ones, that kind of changed. So.
Well, you got to keep this in mind too. Like you can't dismiss the impact that American Graffiti had because that was huge. That kind of kicked off the 50s and 60s nostalgia for the rest of the decade. Of course, Beach Boys are featured prominently on that soundtrack, especially all summer long in the closing credits. And I think that really kind of got people, reminiscing, right? There's a little bit of nostalgia that kicks in. And then, you know, Endless Summer comes out in 74, and you're in the middle of the 70s where you got Vietnam War going on, you got all the energy crisis stuff, and you know, like things sucked in the 70s. And then this was like people had quit listening to the Beach Boys and they had dropped off the cultural radar, you know, unless you were a fan, you didn't even know they were around probably, you know, but everybody got reminded at once of all their early hits from their early era at a time when they really needed to escape the 70s and go back to pre-Vietnam and, you know, pre-political assassinations and just more innocent. And so as it turns out, I think the public was just ready for that. And then the Beach Boys, I mean, it's a blessing and a curse, right? They benefited from it. They made a lot of money off that, but it also, I think, did a lot to kill their progression and their evolution. And it basically, that was it for them. But there you go.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on LA?
Net positive. I mean, I like it a lot. Obviously, I don't like the disco track, but
Who does?
yeah, and you know, and things like I think it's Santa Ana Winds and Going South. You know, those they lag for me, but I don't hate them, but they do drag it a little bit. But the songs that are on there that I like, I love. So I give it a net positive.
What about Angel Come Home? Do you like
Love Angel Come Home.
Yeah.
Love Angel Come Home, and I love Love Surrounds Me. And
Baby Blue?
Baby Blue. Oh man. Oh.
And
Carl's voice on Baby Blue just it gets me every time.
Dennis too. Dennis
Yes.
comes in the middle section late at night when the yeah.
all right. So I'm a big fan of the 85 album. Like, I really like it. Huge fan of that. What do you think about it?
I like it okay. Like I was a freshman in high school when that came out. That's how old I am. And and I was at a point in my fandom where it was Get You Back and California Calling were the only two I liked. The rest of it didn't sound like the Beach Boys to me. I've come around on a lot of the songs. There's some that I still don't like, but I like the fact that it sounds like an 80s album. I mean, what do you want them to do? Still sound like the 60s? They'd get criticized for that, you know? So here they are. They're trying to adapt what they do best to the 80s, and I give them credit for at least trying to whatever degree you think it worked or not. But I love Where I Belong. I think that's fantastic. I don't care and Crack at Your Love, you know, has grown on me. I love that a lot. But like Passing Friend, like I don't need I don't need that.
That was written by Boy George, though. That's not a Beach Boys song.
I know yeah. So, you know, California Calling's got Ringo Starr on drums, so I have to like it for that reason. But, but
Yeah,
but net positive. I mean, and I have firsthand. That was the album that was my the first album where it came out new, and I was aware that it was new, and I have firsthand experience with that coming out, so I have fond memories of it.
Yeah, we should bring you back for the Beach Boys 85 episode to have some of that firsthand experiences, because I could talk about that album for hours. I love that thing.
Okay.
My boy Steve Levine.
David, what are your thoughts on Male Ego?
I like it.
I do too. Yeah.
It's really weird, you know, but you know,
I love
God
it.
bless him, Brian. It's a snapshot of Brian in 1985. I like it. I do. What's the song that he has on the regular album?
I'm So Lonely, and It's Just a Matter of Time.
Yes, I love I'm So Lonely. I think that one's fantastic. I love his delivery of that song. And I also like Sunshine. I think Sunshine's a lot of fun. So
lots of Keeping the Summer Alive.
Oh, that's on Keeping the Summer Alive? Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that song's bad, but
that was one that got by me for a long time. And then one day I heard it, I was like, hey, I like this. It's good. It's fine.
Dumb, be.
Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah.
Glad to have you. That really like your energy, David.
I mean, I'm passionate about the Beach Boys. I don't find a lot of people that can hang with me in terms of talking deep cuts and studio albums. Most people are like, you like the what? Why? They don't get it.
Right.
And they
I have
make fun of me
I have
about
like all
Kokomo
my
or
like
whatever.
hard rock friends and like my band members, and they're like listening to like Metallica and like Black Sabbath, and I'm like, hey, can we play Here She Comes from Carl and the Packers? And they're like,
There you go. Hell
what
yeah.
are you talking about, Riley? I'm like, it's
I
the
know,
Beach
it's like-
Boys. I'm like, you listen to the Beach Boys? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. So I was in high school in the '80s, and so like friends of mine, they're like rocking out to like Bon Jovi or Guns N' Roses, and I'm like, Please Let Me Wonder is really pretty.
It is.
It just goes right by them.
Yeah, you're like, I know you guys like power ballads. You want to hear a really good ballad? There you go.
Let's
All
listen
right.
to Love You.
Hell yeah. I'd be like,
Come on,
my
roller
friends,
skating child.
like, my friends are like listening to like rap and stuff, and I'm like, all right, it's time to go honking down the highway. I'm sorry, the gosh darn highway. All right. We can probably wrap it up there, right?
Yeah.
All right. All right. So thank you everyone for listening to this 13th episode of Good Timin. I hope you all enjoyed the show. I had a great time discussing Holland with you guys. It was fun hearing everyone's thoughts and opinions on each of the different tracks. Really fun to have you on, David. We had a lot of great conversations with you. Again, to our listeners, definitely check out the Apples and Oranges podcast. It's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. Yeah, right. So definitely give that a listen. It's a great show. I've listened to every episode, and if you're into the Beatles or the Beach Boys, definitely check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it. So, as always, if those of you listening like this podcast and want to hear more, feel free to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening. We greatly appreciate the support as it motivates us to make more episodes in the future. Also, as a reminder, our podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So there's plenty of different places to listen and keep up with the show. So thank you again for listening, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.